So welcome everybody. Welcome my fellow panelist and moderator, and welcome all of you who have already logged in. And thank you very much for logging in time. So this is the first episode of CIO Think Through Series, which we are organizing. And this is a fairly innovative and a very different approach that we've followed for this event. Uh, the topic of the discussion for today is enabling business agility. Now, of course, business agility is often used term and a topic for all IT discussions. We've been seeing this topic being used in multiple contexts. But I think today's focus is on leveraging the existing IT investments in platform and technologies which you or your customers would have done, and how do we really get down to modernizing them. And it's also about automating them to bring about more efficient monitoring and more efficient governance. So let's get on with this Red Hat SISL CIO Think Through discussion, which, as I said, focuses on modernization and automation, and how is it that really gets linked to increasing the business agility at minimal cost. Let me introduce our panelist and my companion moderator. Let me start with the co-moderator, who is Ameeta. Ameeta heads the solution architecture team at Red Hat, which means that she's doing a very important role of building solutions which Red Hat is proposing to its customers. And really speaking, these solutions are around open source. So they bring out the power of open source technologies and helping the customers innovate, build agile business models, optimizing the IT, integrating applications, data, processes, building modern applications, and also managing a hybrid cloud infrastructure. On the panel are two eminent speakers. We have Rahul Monie, and we also have Tejveer Bhogal. I'm deliberately not using the salutations of Mr. and Ms. here because I work with all of them in various forms, and we've shared various forums and panels together. So it's a pleasure to connect with all of them in this forum once again. So Rahul is the CTO and CISO, which is Chief Information Security Officer at Absolute Data Research and Analytics. I know him for many years, so I can vouch that he's a seasoned technology specialist, has an expertise in governing high growth IT infrastructure. He's had, he's done a lot of varied roles, which have moved from working with organizations like Microsoft, ComSat Max, First Train. He has also been an entrepreneur and built and sold a few companies, so I'm sure he's sitting on millions right now. So thank you very much, Rahul. I know your schedule has been very busy. We've somehow managed to pull you into this. The other gentleman on the panel is Tejveer. Tejveer is the head of governance and alliances and PMO at Bennett Coleman, which is the Times Group. Tejveer has had a career of more than 25 years, and he has worked in large organizations and very well established organizations in their various fields, like Microsoft in the field of software. He's worked with EY, which is the global audit and consulting firm. He has also been with one of the large SIs, which is Wipro, and of course he's now with BCCL. So, which really means that he's seen a lot of different flavors of IT implementation within the organizations and at various other organizations which would have been customers of companies like Microsoft or Wipro. I was going through his LinkedIn profile and I found something very interesting, wherein he says that he has institutionalized frameworks around governance, risk and compliance, zero-based budgeting, and cost optimization and rationalization, which is exactly what fits into today's discussion. This optimization of cost. While so the idea is that you use the same, you have the same infrastructure, and how do you modernize on top of it? Before we really start, let me talk about myself. Asheet Makhija. I have also worked for a long number of times, almost as much as Tejveer, and have been in various organizations like Microsoft, IBM, Veritas, and CNC, etc. I've also done some entrepreneurial skills myself, and currently I'm heading the technical operations and the services delivery at SISL Infotech. As I said, the panel is familiar, and once again, thank you everybody for joining. We will now get into the main discussion. Just to give you one more pointer here, if you see that we don't have a large panel, a typical panel discussion, but we just insisted that we will focus on just getting three speakers who have rich experience and rich understanding of what's happening around and in this sphere of technology. And we'll probably get deeper into discussions rather than having fleeting discussions a few minutes with every speaker. So all of them will get more time than regular. We will start with our first section. We've divided the whole thing into two sections, and we'll start with the first section, wherein my first question is to Ameeta around how IT scales to meet business needs. So Ameeta, in all your interactions with all your customers, and I'm sure you're interacting with a lot of them on a daily basis, what are you seeing as trends which are there, and what are the customers really looking at in terms of modernizing their infrastructure and their applications?
Yeah, Asheet, you're right. Today when we are looking at business agility, and what our customers are really looking at is how they can bring in some amount of efficiencies, lower their cost, and allow more investment to go into innovation. And in order to do that, one aspect that I want to talk about that is top of the mind for many of these customers is how they can migrate or modernize their existing application workloads. And in that context, one particular trend that we're seeing that is being discussed pretty much with every single customer of ours across sectors is around containerization. So they're looking at how we can practically implement, because they have a lot of these monolithic applications, and they're looking at how they can now practically implement a microservices architecture that we are actually recommending to them. And the reason why containers are having the kind of appeal that they have today is because they're providing an easy way to package an application with all its dependencies into a single image that can then be promoted from development to test to production without any change. And that is a huge plus for organizations that are actually trying to bring in an agile and a DevOps way of doing things, right? So when we are talking about containers, not only is it easy from the point of view of packaging it and promoting it across the DevOps cycle, it's also about how we can ensure consistency across environments where you might have different deployment targets. You may have physical servers, you may have virtual machines, you have private clouds, public clouds, and all of this really helps the teams to easily develop and manage applications that are actually driving business value. Because the minute you're breaking them down into containers, you can just change those parts of the applications that need to be responsive, that need to be agile to meet the needs of the business. So when a business is looking at this kind of ultimate portability, because today customers are all having heterogeneous environments. So when they have these kind of multiple environments, then the kind of portability that containers bring about is really what is capturing the imagination of many of our customers, and they really feel that this would be one of their best decisions ever. And in that context, where Red Hat is trying to help our customers is with our enterprise Kubernetes platform that we call Red Hat OpenShift, because that is helping break down these monolithic applications into microservices. It helps to manage them, because over a period of time, you can imagine, how many containers may get spawned, right? So you need to be able to manage these, you need to be able to orchestrate these, and you need to be able to handle the data they create. So that the teams can actually work on delivering quality software faster. So as the customers are working on creating newer business applications, they're able to do it with the future in mind. And that is where the whole agility part comes in, because they're able to make sure that they're building scalable, agile, and cloud native apps today, and they're able to integrate it with the rest of their businesses right from the beginning. So that really, helps them embark on this whole journey of what we call cloud native development or agile development. To give you an example, when one of India's leading banks needed to transform and they needed to ramp up their entire digital engagement hub to create a very personalized channel experience for their customers across multiple devices, then they relied on OpenShift's capabilities to really allow the build and the deployment of applications on multiple and highly available multi-site OpenShift clusters. So for developers today, it's about the ease of how you can build and deploy apps and having the portability across environments. For IT ops, it is about the consistency that they offer from a deployment to a management standpoint. And then from a business a point of view, it really means that this is the technology that underpins their entire digital transformation efforts, and it supports the whole concept of rapid application development. So this is one point I thought I would talk about, which is top of mind for many of our customers when we are discussing how they can make their businesses more agile and get IT to kind of scale up to meet that need.
Yeah, thanks. I think you really set the context very well, and put a great segue into the next set of discussion. Before that, I just wanted to have, I had one more question, Ameeta, for you. So, there are a lot of things which you said, from DevOps to IT ops, and the benefit it brings about to businesses, and the containerization and the monolithic apps, everything that you spoke about. Is it how complex is it for an organization or a customer to really get onto this path? And how are you and your team helping the customers just make a lot of sense about from their existing legacy applications and platform which they have? So what's the kind of journey? Is it smooth or complex?
That's the right word you used, Asheet. It's a journey. So, with most of our customers, they realize that it cannot be a big bang approach. So typically what, our teams do is that we work with the customers to find out, what parts of their business need to be agile, what can remain as it is, what is already running, and all the investment that they made in their legacy, environments that need to stay as they are, and which parts need to really be nimble, because today a lot of industries are looking at how either they are disrupting a market or getting disrupted themselves, right? So in that context, we look at what parts of their businesses are the ones that need to be fast, nimble, and we start working with them in terms of how then they can work towards, and for this it's also cultural transformation, right? So quite often when we talk to customers, we talk not only about the need for an open architecture, but also the fact that you need to get the buy-in of the people. Then you need to look at your processes, because there is no point taking the same old fossilized processes into a newer way of working, right? And then finally, we look at what tooling you require in order to get the teams to collaborate. And where required, we also talk to customers about innovation labs where we can actually co-create something with them in the early part of their journey, so that they get the comfort, the teams get the comfort that if we come out with 2 or 3 MVPs, along with them, co-creating with them, it gives them that confidence to be able to do the rest of it on their own. So those are some of the ways we work with a customer to prioritize how they want to go about it.
Sure. So it's a pretty much a consultative approach, and you look at customers' priorities. Okay, great. So maybe Rahul, if I would to move on to you and ask you about your experiences, whether it could be within your organizations or within your previous organizations, or with some of the customers where today you are working with or consulting. What are you seeing in the market from the perspective of business agility, especially around modernization?
Okay, so I think it's a foregone conclusion in terms of businesses having to move. What we do see, what I've noticed and seen is some of the more legacy businesses are a bit confused about the whole thing, and they really can't, they have a problem understanding the basic concepts. And that uh, is one of the barriers which has to be broken. And the minute they start understanding that, then the buy-in changes rapidly. Um, I, I'll just share a couple of small anecdotes. Early days of cloud computing, about 4 or 5 years ago, AWS, I mean, or maybe even 7 years ago. And then some of the smarter IT guys convinced their management that they should look at moving to the cloud. But without understanding what they're talking about, they just replicated whatever hardware they had here on the cloud. Obvious end result, huge bills ended up costing you more than the hardware. But the reason I touch upon that is there are, as you and Ameeta said, it is a journey and there are pitfalls. One needs to get in and understand what what is involved in terms of modernizing the entire architecture, application, and so on and so forth, and the benefits. So again, yes, what really happens at that point of time is people start then understanding the building block kind of approach or the Lego kind of approach, and they see that they can continue to grow the application in the areas required while reusing a lot of other investments which have been made in terms of base level ETL packages or those kind of things. But I go back to my original point. Education is one of the most important things that I've come across in this business transformation and agility kind of scenario.
So
partners, sorry.
No, please continue.
As a partners, this is exactly the point where partners make a difference. Because of the extremely short duration that this industry or people who use IT have been exposed. I mean, okay, fine. We guys in the industry, we've been seeing it for some time, but let's look at it on a very practical basis. It's only about 5 or 7 years that this entire dynamic shift has happened, where you have the ability to slice hardware, you have the ability to slice software for, lack of. I don't want to get complex on the whole thing. And this is only 5-7 years old. Your tech guys, your in-house team may or may not have scaled up that much. So it's a question of understanding what it involves and picking a right partner and then working with them. Over to you, Asheet.
Yeah, I think you are saying pretty much what Ameeta was trying to say in terms of working closely with an organization or with a customer organization and understanding the priorities and then setting the entire path forward. So Tejveer, you're inside an organization who I'm sure has tried a lot of things or maybe has successfully carried out a lot of shifts around modernization. How did you go about doing this? Were you also confused? Did you have to go around looking for help, or and then also please talk us about what has really happened and how has that changed the overall agility, if I can link it to the topic.
Thanks, Asheet. To be very honest, both you and Ameeta said it right, that agility for any business is the way forward. Rahul did mention the challenges of the management, be it the mindset or be it the legacy, which acts as a constraint to some of the businesses or some of the organizations. So let me put a different context to the entire discussion. For me, personally speaking, the name of the game today is change. We at BCCL, we are a legacy of 182 years. Okay, and we have always taken pride in being either the early adopters or the game changers, especially when it comes to technology adoption or implementation. And to be very honest with you, this entire digital transformation journey, as Rahul just mentioned, it is not just, it's just about 5, 7 years old. So to be very fair, it was exactly in 2013-14 when I joined BCCL, and I'm not taking the credit for that, but that's when the entire game changed for us. Uh, as a matter of fact, we were the first in the media vertical to roll out a complete hybrid collaboration and a communication platform, which later got on, completely transitioned to a on cloud model. And that was the first in the scenario of the Indian media organizations. To be very fair, some of the reputed organizations did conquer some awards to us for the same. Uh, Probably one of the most complex yet successful implementation of a CRM for our front end business team was done during this period. And of course, for the back end consumer facing ecosystem as well. And all this was being done only using agile methodology. To just to address to what Ameeta said, agility, that's the game. And to be very, very explicit, hybrid environment was something that we adopted almost about a couple of years back, wherein we not only just provided scalability on the fly, but the much required agility and availability of a platform for any of our various brand campaigns that we anticipate, that we run for our consumers directly. That paved the way. The hybrid cloud environment paved the way for those brand campaigns. Having said that, I think pandemic, like everybody else, did witness some major transformations or transitions to cloud platform, and definitely it impacted BCCL as well in some form or shape. What it did was it actually re-identified the business imperatives, and some of these, which were primarily came into the limelight, was the need for speed. I think that was number one. Execution, immediate. Second was the how technology can intervene for a higher productivity enablement of the employees. That's internal, that's core to the organization. And third was how is it that we can actually achieve more with less and less of investment. So to your point as to how we can bring in cost efficacies, how we can leverage the existing investments, all of these. And that's what really paved the or laid the foundation for any digital transformation journey. And to be very honest, I think we are very proud to say that some of the brand campaigns that we launched during these last 6 to 7 months were primarily because of the change in those business imperatives and because of the investments that we made in the hybrid cloud and the agile methodology that we adopted. I think we were able to bring in those cost efficacies and speed of execution so as to counter the the competition per se in the media vertical. I think those were some of the uh, uh, changing or those were some of the factors which actually enabled us to survive through this pandemic and the entire disruption that it brought in the ecosystem.
Okay. So, so were you doing all this in house, or were you relying on partners and technology companies?
So, Ashit, we are a very lean and a mean organization. And I think all credit to the entire team, not only the in house, but also the partner ecosystem who supported us in ensuring that all these adoptions, all these game changing technologies that we adopted over the last 7 to 8 years, I think it's all a joint effort. We have had some amazing partnerships with players like EY, with Microsoft, with HP for our private cloud investment, with others. I don't want to name everybody, but yes, there was a huge set of consortium which we created, an ecosystem, which actually, it's like a moving wheel now, and it's helping us run that, or instead of walking that journey, we're trying to run that journey of digital transformation. So that is what is happening today, Ashit.
So, Amita, I think that's what you also mentioned partners. Rahul also mentioned partners, and Tejveer also mentioned partners. So I think it is. I'm sure you're focusing on this, but just a very quick comment from you as to how are you going about taking this to the to the marketplace, because how much can Red Hat as a team do? The number of customers who actually need solutions like these is vast, and as Rahul was saying, that it's a consultative approach. It's a discussion where a lot of people want to understand what this is all about. So it's a time taking and an intensive process. So how are you ensuring that the right message is going via your ecosystem?
Right, Asheet, we have a very vibrant ecosystem of partners that work with us, strategic partners that are, obviously, like you rightly said, Red Hat cannot do this alone. We take a lot of pride in the entire partner ecosystem, including the likes of SISL, to actually take this message across to customers. And one is, from the point of view of this whole consultative approach. Then there is also a vibrant ecosystem that we work with for complementary solutions, because while Red Hat is a leader in the entire open source community, and there are a lot of upstream projects in the community that we are directly leading and have a say in those projects. But in addition, there are a whole lot of other complementary technologies that are offered by our partners as well. So, when we are talking about going to the market, we have, services partners, we have OEM partners, we have, ISV partners that are building their solutions on top of ours. And that's really how we are looking at really being able to take a very mature offering out there to the market, so that we can really meet the needs of customers, not just in, what Rahul talked about in terms of a lot of legacy applications lying there that customers don't know. There could be some amount of education that is required. There is that level of, and that's the reason why I mentioned that change management is a big piece, right? Where we have to take the customers along with us on this journey and reduce the risk of their existing business, as well as helping them to scale. And that's really where this whole partner ecosystem really comes into play, in terms of helping them along on this journey and partnering with them in the true sense.
So, Rahul, maybe just one of the last couple of questions on this topic. Have you also been interacting with the developer community, and if you have any discussion points on it, or any feedback on where is the DevOps going with this entire thing around modernization and agile or CI/CD? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, okay. So I have the advantage of working very closely with the dev guys, because of the way our organization is structured. I mean, we do have a bunch of products which we are developing, and I'm part of the whatever steering committee which works with them. So DevOps, again, I mean, I sometimes get surprised, but DevOps, SecOps didn't exist, right? And one needs to have a really robust system, because today in the middle of this moving quickly, a lot of organizations are discovering new ideas which they can implement quickly because of this speed. But what does happen at times is, if you don't have a decent DevOps pipeline in place, which is not testing properly, which is not making sure the apps are secure, there's no backdoors in it, because about I would roughly put it about 40 to 50% of all code which is written is not written, it's copied. It's picked up from here and there, from open source, from friends, from whatever. If somebody's written, let's take a simple thing. Somebody's written a calendar function in a particular format which you require for your app, and you find it on one of the repositories, and it's open source. You're just going to copy it and use it, right? Now you don't know who's written it. So there are two issues which come up here. you don't know who's written it and what holes are left, what backdoors are left in the whole thing. So that's why your DevOps platform comes in terms of being able to check the entire thing and make sure and say and ask the developer, dude, did you leave this hole, this backdoor open here, or you just don't know about it, and stop the build at that point. The second part is for the business leaders or at least the design leaders to understand that this is a chunk of code which has been which is open, totally open source. It's under the general public license. So that's going to have ramifications on that block of code in which it resides. Technically, I think if I remember right, you're supposed to that chunk of code becomes open source. Now, if you're trying to create IP, this is a bit of a contradictory kind of scenario here. So again, the quality or the CI/CD pipeline which you've put up in the entire for the entire application modernization, maintenance, and ongoing running, that needs to be pretty robust and take care of all these kind of things which may come and bite you in the back at some point later. Instead of just focusing on the pure agility of the whole thing and the advantage that you get with the speed of deploying it, and you kind of get carried away with this. Oh, I can do this in 1/5 the time or 1/4 the time that it took us to do it 10 years ago because of all the newer technologies, and then just get carried away but not focus on the security also of the whole thing.
Okay, yeah, thanks. So Tejveer, the last question I had with you on this the same topic. When you picked up certain areas of modernization, how did you really decide which ones to pick first? Was it a business priority? Was it that something to do with it, something which is easy to launch or easy to transform? How did that thought process go about?
So I think for us, I'll make it very simple. Asheet, the way we are structured as an organization, I think we are very clear as to what our organization objectives are. And the entire force, I'm not just referring to the IT team over here, but the entire management and the workforce behind them is focused only on that. And that's the long-term objectives. So obviously the massive enterprise transformation projects that I referred to were part of those long-term objectives. And of course, there was a very tightened and a detailed strategy wrapped around it. Having said that, I think what Rahul also mentioned, that in the zeal of making things happen very quickly, which is speed of execution, we tend to give away or kind of lose the focus on security. So coming to that point, I think the low-hanging fruits for us are typically the brand campaigns, because these campaigns are very short in nature. These are either a 2-day or a 1-week campaign, and I think that is where we really transformed and geared ourselves for those so-called either the open source platforms or the other technology platforms which are available for us in the cloud arena, wherein we were able to deliver those campaigns to our businesses in a very short span of time. And of course, by bringing in definitely a lot of investment protection that we already had, and second, in terms of bringing in the cost efficacy. But of course, keeping in mind the information security as well, Rahul, to your point, because see, end of the day, our IP is only content and the data that we generate. The consumers for us, that's everything. So at any given point in time, we cannot be we cannot put our foot down, or we cannot actually let the foot off the pedal in terms of information security. So that's something which is definitely there, which is always on our radar and as a focus area. So Asheet, to your question, yes, I think those brand campaigns were the low-hanging fruits. But then yes, the overall business-led enterprise transformation projects, that was always the focus, and that's where our partner ecosystem comes in and becomes very handy for us for those transformations.
Yeah, Asheet, if you don't mind, if I can just intervene here.
Sure.
Just a comment, because I think Rahul has spoken exactly like a CISO. I would expect a CISO to speak, and and Tejveer has also mentioned the same. And I agree that with the choice that we have today of multiple public clouds, private, on-premise, then we are saying VMs, and now we are saying containers as well, right? And then to add to all that, you have operating systems, runtimes. So the entire responsibility for maintaining a very secure environment can be a little daunting, right? So, and also, how are we going to build in the security requirements into the life cycle of each of these components? So that is a very, very critical area, and we do recognize that at Red Hat. So we are, when we talk to customers, and that's really the value that we are bringing from your upstream open source, to what we call enterprise open source, when we actually kind of make it more consumable for enterprises. So starting with design, we actually try to work with customers to identify the requirements, and also we actually advise them right from the governance model upfront. Security not plugged in, but security as with being very intentional about security, and then building it from the start. And then we ensure that from a product standpoint, the security is inbuilt, integrated into the complete platform and everything else that's built in. But for customers as well, they have to make sure that they put the right role-based access controls. They make sure that by default security is turned on, enforced, and then make sure that all the auditing happens periodically from a compliance standpoint, and then whatever else is required. But very good point. And you're absolutely right. Even in some of the surveys that we conduct with our customers on a regular basis, while top of mind is the cost reduction, because they want to bring in free up more budgets for innovation, but it has never been at the risk of compromising their systems. And you'll be interested to know that security came a close second. While they talked about the cost reduction, security was top of mind. Just thought I'd mention that. Back to
In fact, just to add, Ameeta, work from home or work from remote places, security has becoming paramount importance as of today. It's number one now.
You're right. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Ameeta. I was actually wanting to get you in only for that, because both of them were mentioning security, and I could see we each on your face that you had to say something about it, definitely. So thank you for that. Okay, so moving on, the other aspect of business agility and building efficiencies and reducing the cost that we decided to take in this discussion was around automation. So we all understand that there are routine tasks, there are a lot of manual processes, and the more intensive any operation is from a manual perspective, the more is the chance of it being risk or error prone, which actually leads to a lot of expense to redo or to undo things which have happened, whether it is applications, whether it is network devices, or whether it's the rest of the infrastructure. It's important to have those efficient workflows to manage those, and especially when the scale of the business starts going up, then a small error around this can really manifest itself in a much larger form. So I think, so at least being a SI as SISL, what we're seeing is a lot of customers are having a discussion with us around automating many processes, automating governance, automating monitoring, and what we've also seen is that a lot of customers have such automation tasks or exercises which they had picked up, some initiatives they had taken, but they were taken in silos. So really speaking, they have various pieces working, but they're not really working very well. So you don't really have a mechanism to monitor everything, if I can call it in a single dashboard or in a single manner, and ensuring that it's a platform approach to automation, if I can say that. So Ameeta, starting with you once again, if you would like to tell us what is Red Hat doing, what is it that you're seeing with customers, what are the discussions that you're having around this, and some of the best practices that you're implementing, some of the advice that you're giving to the customers.
So definitely our customers are seeing the benefits of automation, for their businesses. It's pretty compelling, right? Whether you're looking at bringing in some amount of efficiency or predictability or accountability, and at the same time, as you mentioned, taking away some of the risks of doing things manually, and of course, the cost and other things will also come into the picture. And many organizations, I believe, though, are still taking a little limited approach to automation, because while they're automating, they're doing it in pockets, and you're not going to get the real full value of automation if you're automating in silos, right? Because simply put, doing it in silos is not enough to really transform your business. So while organizations are doing it, we are really talking to them about how they can actually, again, just like I talked about security, look at getting the true value of automation from a strategic standpoint. What is it that they want to get? And that is where we try to work with them from a strategic standpoint in terms of what is it that they want to achieve. And then we also recognize the fact that we need to have everyone in the organization that has to really be bought into the process, right? So any enterprise-wide automation strategy has to benefit the individual first. That is a realization that I've come to from several conversations that we've had. And this becomes, if you get the individuals in the organization to buy into the whole automation process, then it really has a chance to become viral. So we've also found that when the language for the automation is simple, when it can be shared, okay, when we say automation as a language, okay, we're saying that it should be able to tell the story of how the things are going to get done across the organization, right? So then we start seeing how the silos are going to start connecting. So today, like I mentioned, many organizations are automating because automation, they have realized, is important, but it is to some aspects. And what they're really doing sometimes is it's very disparate. There are some ad hoc scripts in some places. In some cases, it's some proprietary tools that they're using. And with any of these approaches, they're not able to really scale across diverse resources, right? And many times then what happens is it becomes difficult to update and extend some of these automations, because technologies are evolving, newer requirements are coming up. And really speaking, if I have to talk from a stats standpoint, only about 18% organizations are really doing automation in a manner that could really add value. So while we are talking about automation, one area that Red Hat works on and is what we call Ansible automation from, if I can name a product. So what we really work on with customers is that we look at how Ansible can help them in every facet of their IT. So let it not be only applications, let it look at infrastructure, networks, containers, cloud. So we are saying use Ansible automation so that it's easy enough for everyone to understand and adopt and start using, because you don't really need too much of coding skills. The second part of it is how we can accelerate it, your automation in the organization, because with Ansible, you're having now an infrastructure agnostic kind of a framework. And the language can then be applied across your compute, your network, your cloud, your containers, and your virtual machines. And then it also provides a common language for your IT staff so that it will have more impact and operational improvement, because then it becomes a common language and everyone can share the results with everybody. And then finally, the integration part of it, because you don't have to give up your existing automation tools. You can integrate them with, and we have a huge partner ecosystem here again that are providing different aspects of automation that then Ansible can integrate into. So what we're seeing and what we're advising customers, Asheet, in a nutshell, is to have a holistic approach to automation so that teams can collaborate in this whole CI/CD that Rahul talked about, the whole DevOps approach, if we have a common language rather than everybody using some separate tooling that is, disparate. So Ansible helps to kind of bring it all together, and there are rule books that can actually help call, the different, components or other tooling that you may have in your environment. So that's really how we do it.
Okay, thank you. Once again, that was very comprehensive. I mean, I do have some clarifications and questions, but I think I'll come back to you a little later, especially around, what you said, that there should be a common language across the organization. I think and the fact that, it should be, you start from the individuals. I think we'll come back to that. But before that, Rahul, what are you seeing with your customers? What's really happening around automation, and is there a awakening, or are we still in that 18% bracket where customers are looking at a comprehensive automation and automation tools, and some others are picking up things in silos?
It's a mix and match of both. But what we found is where we worked with customers and we've taken their inputs and automated the stuff for us to be able to do what we do as a business, which is data analytics, faster. And they've kind of turned around and asked us how we did it. So whether it's a straightforward ETL kind of scenario or something which is which allows predictive sales quarter on quarter and allows the sales guys to interact with it and model because the data flow is completely automated. People have picked it up, but yes, as Ameeta said, it tends to be a bit sketchy, and it's always driven by, at least not always, but a lot of times it's driven by that particular business unit who understands it and who's very keen on pushing it. Whereas you might have some other business unit who doesn't. So within an organization, you have maybe 20% of the organization where automation works very well because top down they're aligned, starting from the SBU head, and the rest of the 80% of the organization is still wondering what these guys are up to and why can't we make it work. That does come across. I don't know, the automation bit for me is more like the software projects in the old days, where you ended up with the same 80-20 kind of stuff. you and me, Asheet, have faced it in Microsoft at some many points and other organizations. So yeah, again, that well thought out, complete approach has to be there, and it's not a magic wand which is applied. But couple of large clients we worked with, we found that if we create a good base and set them on the right track, then they start understanding it and start integrating the other parts of the organization, and you gradually see across maybe a 18 to 24-month time period the entire organization moving towards maybe 80% automation and actually getting the benefits of it. But yeah, the bits and pieces, as Ameeta said, it stays. It's difficult. The overall picture has to be there from and driven top down, and then it works brilliantly. If it's bits and pieces, it'll work in that bit, but not across the entire piece.
Sure. Okay. Again, I have a follow-on question, but I'll come back to you, Rahul. So Tejveer, your experiences of automation, and again, I'm sure you would have implemented various kinds of automations in the organization. But maybe from the perspective of what Ameeta was talking about, infrastructure, cloud, containers, with respect to this, have you taken initiatives, and if yes, what kind and what has been the outcome?
So Asheet, for me, personally speaking, automation is a very abused word today. Uh, I personally believe it's a evolving process. It's not something that it is to be done today and it can happen tomorrow. Like Rahul also mentioned, there's no magic wand. For me, it's a long journey, and for any journey, I think there are a couple of factors that need to be considered to make it a successful journey. So for me, I like to take a four-step approach, and the first and the foremost is to reassess and redefine what are those business imperatives because of this new normal that we are in currently today, and of course, what are the existing processes and what changes that may be required. That's the number one. So from a process standpoint, I think that's key for us. Second is the aspect of legacy. Rahul did mention about a while back in the previous discussion that legacy, most of the organizations are struggling with legacy today. Let's take an example for us. We are 182-year legacy. Every organization today like ours would have very unique challenges, and accordingly one need to strategize, how convenient or how difficult it is to move from a legacy client server architecture to a cloud based architecture. you know can we look at agile methodology or develop a new application and replace the existing one? How easy or how difficult that is. That's number two. Number three, we are talking about the cost. There's a huge investment that we have actually made for the existing infrastructure that we have. And when I say infra, I'm not just talking about the server, the storage. I'm talking about the entire enterprise landscape that we have. You know, there are so many capital investments which are there, and for one, as an organization like ours, we would always favor a capital investment because of the cash rich and whatever XYZ reasons. But then not anymore. I think today we are also looking at a cloud based or a technology which can offer us flexibility, which can offer us scalability, because these platforms come at a very low cost. And I think the kind of cost efficacy that they bring in and the overall ROI, I think that's a pleasing sign for all the exchequers and people like me also who manage the budget. So I think that's a third factor. And last but not the least is the partner. I think once again, I'll circle back to the partner of choice. Reason being that this is one of the most important calls in the wheel of this entire digital transformation journey that I look at. And I consider automation to be a part of this entire transformation journey, because technology plays a major role, but it is the partner who is actually putting their skin in the game, which could be that differentiating factor to the success or the failure of this entire project or initiative. Because that's where the investment protection comes in. Having said that, I think there are few other imperatives which are very critical, and somewhere you did mention that, Ashit, during your opening discussion. I think there has to be one single source or a data lake where all this data resides. I think this is a huge challenge for many of the organizations. Second is the real-time availability of that data. Today, how many people can say, okay, fine, yes, I have data, but do I have that available at any given point in time so that I can take a informed decision and a faster decision on that? I think that's something critical, and that's where analytics comes in very handy. Ameeta did talk about analysis, and see, all that is fine. We can have tools and technologies to do the analytics, but then do we have that data ready for us? Is it in one place? Is it aligned? Has it been categorized? Has it been sliced and diced? So all that has to be done, and for that we need to have the right data architecture and a right data strategy. And last but not the least, I think we should have a bird's eye view, which is in form of a dashboard. Do we have that? Can the top management have a single point of view to this entire data, to this entire factors, to these entire objectives, KRAs, goals, achievements, stuff like that, so that the business can accordingly align to the ever evolving and ever dynamic scenario that we are living in today. And to sum it up, I think the biggest factor which will drive all of this, and Rahul did mention that in some form or shape, is change management. It has to be driven from the top. The human capital is resisting this change. And I think if we are able to address that part, I think we will be able to transform not only the legacy environment, but also the futuristic business goals or the business requirements per se, so as to address the competition and the consumer, so that we can have a wow experience for our consumers as well. Over to you, Asheet.
So here I would actually I would invite questions from the participants. Feel free to put your questions on the Q&A section. We have one question for now from Mr. Bangalore Prasad, and we'll come to that shortly. Before that, Ameeta, I want to quickly get your comment once again, and if you could just delve a little bit deeper onto that aspect of the individuals need to be the first point of call, and also the voice around automation across the organization. So if you could just explain that.
Absolutely. So, I think I made this point earlier, and I think that ties into what Tejveer was also trying to say, that, yes, organizations have invested, there is legacy environment, there's the levels of knowledge within the team is also, so different, right? And we also have to bring the entire organization together to a consistent vision, and which means that whole DevOps today extends to the business, the development, the security, the testing, the operations. The entire organization has to come together, and that change that we're talking about has to be a cultural transformation, right? And that is where, from an automation standpoint, one of the objectives of the entire philosophy behind everything that we have built into Ansible has been really how we can reduce the learning curve. How can we make sure that the playbooks, quote unquote, we use the word playbooks for Ansible, how can we make it humanly readable YAML code? That has been the focus, because making it simple is very, very critical, because only then will our customers, and when I say our customers, it's finally there are people behind it, right? They will be able to address not only the demand of the current, but also in terms of the future, generations of, whatever else they're going to, do about it. And therefore, in order to not make the change so overwhelming, we tell customers that there is a lot of tooling they already have in their environment, for example, right? So how can we make it easier to blend what we are advocating with what they already have? So for example, Ansible is completely agentless. It uses standard SSH connectivity so that you can execute some of your automation workflows. It's very modular, which means, there are hundreds of modules that can be invoked, so that, different parts of the product's capabilities can, come into the picture. And it's a very popular open source project, just by the way. So besides the open source community, we have several partners that are also building a lot of modules, that Ansible can then call, right? So if you need some, want to call some networking piece of the thing, you can just be able to connect to that, etc. So we are trying to make sure that we make it as multi-generational, multi-vendor, multi-tier, multi-cloud, multi-layer, bringing in as much consistency as we can to the environment to make that whole change that much more palatable, for our customers. And Tejveer is absolutely right. When the environment ends up becoming so complex and there are so many things happening, and Tejveer, you already mentioned that you have a hybrid cloud environment, it becomes that much more difficult. And therefore, for organizations to scale, we have been talking to customers that look at standardizing your, while your underlying environment is heterogeneous, how about standardizing on an operating system, that spans across your landscape, from your cloud to your bare metals in your, on-prem data centers? And how about then having a common platform for your, container orchestration? Then you're bringing in the portability, then you're bringing in that visibility, then you're having that common pane of glass through which you can have a look across your enterprise landscape. So those are some of the things we are working on to make sure that we are providing that level of comfort. So a little long-winded answer, Asheet, but this is really where we are trying to do in terms of simplifying it for our customers.
Yeah, thank you. No, I think I get the point. Okay, so we are not too far off the end of this discussion. So I will quickly pick up the questions And the first question, which actually, Ameeta, I would want to start with you, and Rahul and Tejveer, feel free to jump in wherever you think you have a point of view on that. The first question is in this, and this is from Mr. Bangalore Prasad. His question is, in this hybrid cloud scenario, how can we ensure a secured environment for both our employees and our clients? So it somewhere ties into all the discussions that we had, but maybe you'd like to just repeat, Ameeta.
Sure. So in a hybrid cloud environment, like I said, it is absolutely important that the right security policies are put in, the right governance models are put in, and security is by intent, like I said, baked into the strategy, because in that case, what happens is you have very clear what I call role-based access controls. And then when we talk about containers, etc., right, which registries are these containers coming from? Where are those images coming from? Are they authenticated? Are they from a trusted source? There are multiple aspects that we can build in. So, if I talk from a Red Hat standpoint, right from the operating system, we are baking in security into every layer. And then we also have a dependency on the organization as well to, make sure that their, security strategies also are in place, because then, together we can, make sure that this really works. And obviously with every organization, when we say role-based access control, we really say minimal access, only as much as needed, right? That becomes the standard thing, unless it requires something else.
Sure, thanks. Okay, so the next question is from Mr. Prakash Menon, and actually speaking, I think this is very relevant to what Rahul, you and Tej were saying. The question is, one big issue seen is the depth of knowledge and sharing. The client organization knows his business and operations threadbare. The partner who is implementing the solution knows his product and technology threadbare. How do we attain that level of integration between the two, as the gaps between the two teams at times is the reason for the failure of such implementations? So effectively, how do we get the understanding and get them on a common plane? So Rahul, do you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah. It's simple thing. Talk. Model the stuff and talk. Mr. Menon is right in saying that each party knows their part of the stuff the best. Also, what happens is the classic word assumption comes into, or assume comes in between the two, where the client assumes that the partner understands the client's business, and the partner assumes that the client understands the amount of technology which has to go in. So in my personal experience, I found you have to sit and walk through walk through the entire process, the entire solution, part by part, with each of the owners in great detail. And I would say, in terms of if one is looking at an automation project, you put aside 40, maybe as high as 40% of the time to make sure people understand what you're doing. And then it works, because then you're not going back, you're not doing a demo and the classic teamwork or client cartoons that all of us see, one rail track here, one the other rail track here. None of that happens, because, or neither do they say, no, this is not what I said, you have to redo it again. When you go through the wireframing, when you go through the mock-up screens, and you repeatedly go through the entire process on whiteboards, yes, it's time taking, but net you'll find your dev is written mostly once.
Sure.
Tejveer.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So kind of
Could have faced it.
yeah. So Rahul said it actually, and there is no two way about it. I think it's like a marriage, and marriage between not only the client but also between the two teams. For me, it's something very simple. It may sound easy, but it is not. But still, uh, a partner needs to understand the business of the client. As long as that happens, I think 90% of the times the project would be a big success. If the partner is not understanding the business, no matter how hard you try, whether you spend 50% of the time or 70% of the time, I think it is bound for a failure. And that is where the entire diligence from the customer has to be primarily on the business parameters and the business understanding of our partner. As long as that is taken care of, I think any project can be successful, because today the client is very informed, the client is very knowledgeable, the client is very tech savvy, the clients understand technology more than probably the sales team or the solutions team of the partner ecosystem as well. So I think right now the need of the hour is for the partner ecosystem to understand the business, and that's where some of the partners who are niche players in a particular domain, I think they're doing very, very well. Time and again, personally speaking, I have seen that there are specific partners who have excelled in media and entertainment vertical. Reason being, they understand that vertical, the business side of it very well, not the technology side of it. So I think that's the key.
Yeah.
To answer your question, Mr. Menon, I think that's what it will take.
Yeah, I think it's the effort from both the sides. As you said, it's a marriage, and it better be a happy marriage eventually. For that, communication is key, really speaking. Okay, so great. I don't see any more questions, and we anyways beyond our stipulated time. So I'd like to just thank you all for this very enriching discussion. I think we had a good discussion around the modernization, whether it's the infra, whether it's the IT ops, or it's the DevOps, the entire modernization aspect using technology platforms like OpenShift, or open or automation, and all the points which all of you made were absolutely fantastic and relevant in terms of automating the entire landscape, and what Ameeta was talking about, not picking silos but taking an organizational and enterprise view of the entire automation practice. So I think this I enjoyed the discussion a lot. I'm sure the other participants also did that. Thank you, Ameeta, for the great moderation, or the moderator, not moderation, but the moderator that you were. I think you had some great points to make. Thank you, Rahul, for coming from a rich experience of working with many customers, and from your serial entrepreneurship. And Tejveer, thank you again. It's good to be with you on such discussions. Always you come with a lot of great points from your experiences. So with that, I'd end this discussion. Thank you all, and thank you all the participants. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Asheet, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.